The backyard barbecue for Dad's birthday should have been a celebration. Instead, it became the day I finally stopped being invisible. My name is Elena Vargas. I am 36 years old and an associate architect at one of the most prestigious firms in Guadalajara. I designed the new headquarters for a pharmaceutical company that won international awards. My name appears in specialized magazines. I bought my own loft in Providencia when I was 30. But for my family, none of that mattered as much as the apparent success of my younger sister Valeria. Valeria was the charismatic one, the extroverted one, always with some exciting story to tell. According to my parents, her boutique in the American colony was thriving. They bragged about her at every opportunity. I was just the architect who worked too much. That Saturday afternoon, the garden of my parents' house was filled with relatives, cousins, neighbors, and Dad's co-workers. The tables overflowed with food and naughty music played from the speakers. Dad was in his element, grilling meat and telling jokes. I arrived late, straight from a client meeting, still carrying my portfolio and rolled up blueprints. No one asked about my project. Everyone was gathered around the shiny new silver Crossing V parked in the driveway. "It's beautiful," I heard Aunt Sophia say. "New. Valeria bought it for us," Mom announced with radiant pride. She surprised us last week and said it was time to retire the old car. I approached slowly. The 2024 CR-V still carried that new car scent. I mentally calculated at least 580,000 pesos. "Valeria bought this?" I asked, knowing the truth but needing to hear it. Mom turned to me with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Yes, Danny, your sister is so generous with us. Her boutique is doing very well." Valeria appeared from the house, perfectly made up in a flowered dress that probably cost more than she earned in a month at her store. She shot me a familiar warning look. "Elena, what a relief you made it," she said in that sweet voice she used for an audience. "How is your project going, that pharmaceutical corporate building?" "Already under construction," I corrected. "That's nice," she replied without real interest, turning back to the guests. "Elena works so much we hardly ever see her." Understanding laughter filled the garden. The lonely architect who lived for work. That was my role in the family story. We ate, we sang the birthday song. Dad opened his gifts. I had given him a carefully chosen watch. Valeria gave him a shirt. Dad thanked both but kept talking about the car all afternoon. After the cake, while everyone drank coffee and tequila, Mom gathered the family for a toast. She stood beside the Crossing V with Valeria at her side and began her speech. "I want to thank my daughter Valeria," she started with an emotional voice, "for this beautiful gift. She has always been so thoughtful, so generous with us." Everyone applauded. Valeria smiled modestly with the perfected "it's nothing" expression. Then Mom added, looking straight at me, "Valeria bought us the new car. She is so generous, unlike you." Time stopped. The murmurs ceased. I felt every gaze land on me. Aunt Carmen shifted uncomfortably. My cousin Javier looked down. Something inside me broke. It was not anger, it was exhaustion. Exhaustion from 6 years of silence. My hands began to tremble. I took my phone from my bag with fingers I could barely control. My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Starting tomorrow, I will stop sending you the 95,000 pesos every month." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the music seemed to stop. Mom turned pale as paper. "What money are you talking about?" I opened my banking app and walked toward her, holding the screen in front of her face. "These 95,000 pesos that I have transferred to you every month for the last 6 years to Valeria's account so she could pass them on to you." Dad set down his beer. "What are you talking about?" I swiped, showing transfer after transfer. 95,000 pesos monthly for 72 months. That totals 6,840,000 pesos. Valeria tried to interrupt. "Elena, this is not the time." 6,840,000 pesos. I continued, my voice growing firmer, "for the mortgage, for medical expenses, for house repairs, to maintain the lifestyle you have." My uncle Fernando, who is an accountant, took my phone with permission. His eyes widened as he checked. "My God, it's real. All the transfers are documented." Mom staggered. Dad caught her. "Why, Valeria?" "Because 6 years ago," I explained, feeling tears burn my eyes but refusing to let them fall, "when Dad had his heart attack and the medical bills left you bankrupt, Valeria called me crying. She said you were going to lose the house. She asked for help. But you never said anything." Dad whispered. "Valeria asked me not to. She said it would be better if the money came through her so Dad would not feel bad receiving money from his successful daughter. It would be easier if you thought it came from her boutique." "Valeria's boutique is doing very well," Mom said weakly, trying to convince herself. "No," I said softly. "The boutique barely covers rent and basic expenses, right, Valeria?" My sister had tears running down her perfect makeup. She did not answer. I opened another screen on my phone. This is the mortgage statement for this house. Every monthly payment of 42,000 pesos has come from my account for 6 years. The remaining 53,000 pesos were for your expenses, utilities and food. My cousin Lucia, who works at a bank, checked the screen. It's true. The payments come from an account in the name of Elena Vargas. And the car? I said, pointing at the CRV that had started all this. Those 580,000 pesos came from my account exactly 9 days ago. I transferred the money to Valeria for the down payment on her new boutique. Instead, she used it to buy you this car and play the generous daughter. Valeria sobbed. Elena, I was going to pay you back. When? I asked without anger, only weariness. When were you going to tell them the truth? When were you going to admit your boutique is barely surviving? When were you going to acknowledge that I have been the one supporting in these 6 years? Dad sank into a chair. 6 years. 6 million pesos. 6,840,000. Uncle Fernando corrected, still staring at my phone in amazement. Not counting the extras. I see additional transfers here. 75,000 for your mother's surgery last year, 120,000 for the new roof, 45,000 for the trip to Puerto Vallarta in December. Everything you thought came from Valeria's success actually came from my salary, from my bonuses, from my projects. Mom began to cry. Why? Why did you do it if you knew we would not thank you? Because you are my parents. I answered simply. Because when I was 15 and wanted to study architecture, you sold the car to pay for my private high school. Because you gave me education, support and love. I thought I was returning the favor. But you let us believe it was Valeria. Valeria wanted you to believe it was her. And you wanted to believe it. Every time you bragged about her successful boutique or her generosity, you chose to believe your charismatic daughter was the successful one. I was just the boring architect who worked too much. The garden was in complete silence. 30 people witnessing the collapse of a 6-year lie. Valeria finally spoke with a broken voice. I did contribute at the beginning, the first few months. You contributed 8,000 pesos once 5.5 years ago. I said, showing another screen. After that, 0. Everything has been mine. But your boutique. Dad began looking at Valeria. It is barely surviving. Valeria admitted between sobs. I have been 2 years behind on the store rent. I have been using credit cards to keep up appearances. The truth fell over the family like a collapsing building. I saw faces of horror, disbelief and shame. So the house, the food, the utilities, the trips, everything. Mom said slowly, trying to process. It was me, I confirmed. 95,000 pesos every month without fail. I worked on 3 projects at once to maintain that amount. I turned down a position in Mexico City that paid double because you were here and I wanted to be close in case you needed me. My God, Dad whispered, covering his face with his hands. I put my phone back in my bag. I am going to cancel the automatic transfer tonight. Valeria can start supporting you with her successful boutique like you always believed. Elena, wait. Mom reached out to me. No, I said with a firm but calm voice. For 6 years I paid for this house in silence. I worked 70 hours a week. I sacrificed vacations, trips, relationships, everything to make sure you were all right. And today in front of the whole family you said I am not generous, that I am not like Valeria. We did not know, Dad began. You chose not to know, I replied. Every month that passed without you asking, every time you bragged about Valeria without asking about my work, you chose the version of the story you preferred. I walked toward my car. My cousin Lucia followed me to the parking area. I always knew something did not add up. She told me quietly. Valeria's numbers never made sense, but no one wanted to hear it. I gave her a hug. It is not your fault, Lou. That night from my loft I cancelled the automatic transfer. 6 years of payments ended. I blocked Valeria's number but kept my parents' numbers active without replying yet. The messages started immediately. Valeria, Elena, please forgive me. I am so sorry. Mom, we need to talk, please. Dad, Elena, we made a terrible mistake. I waited 3 days before responding. Finally, Mom came to my office. She looked devastated. We sat in a nearby cafe. The bank called. She began with a trembling voice. The mortgage is overdue. Without your payments we are going to lose the house in 3 months. I know, I said calmly. Are you really going to let us lose everything? Mom cried. During 6 years I paid for that house. I said softly. During 6 years I stayed invisible while Valeria received all the credit. I cannot continue like this. But we are your family and I am your mother. You are the mother of the daughter who worked tirelessly to support you. The daughter who sacrificed so much so you could live comfortably, yet you made me feel I was never enough. Mom took my hand. Forgive me, please. Valeria has confessed everything. Your father is devastated. We have been blind and cruel. I looked her in the eyes. I will think about it, but things cannot go back to the way they were. 2 months have passed. I restored a monthly transfer, but only 30,000 pesos directly to their account, not through Valeria. I told them it is temporary. Dad found a part-time consulting job. Valeria closed her boutique and is working in sales. They had to sell the Crossing V. Mom calls me every week not to ask for money but to ask how I am. Dad wrote a 5-page apology letter. Valeria and I spoke once. She cried asking for forgiveness. The house will be saved, but no longer at the cost of my invisibility. Justice does not feel like fireworks. It feels like clean air, like finally being able to breathe after years of holding my breath. Thank you for listening to today's story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. See you in the next story.